What if I told you that after everything we saw with Ace, Nick, Olandria, Taylor, Cierra, the Love Island Huda drama, the whole Love Island Season 7 chaos on Love Island USA, this dating show was not actually the wildest part of the story? Because while people are still arguing over whether Nicolandria was real, whether Nick and Olandria were strategy, and who should have won Love Island, Olandria just sat down on a podcast and quietly revealed what their relationship really looks like behind the scenes, and it completely changes how you see Nicolandria, Nick and Olandria as a couple. She didn't just talk about the villa. She talked about feeling hardened, not feeling safe, almost giving up on that soft, romantic version of herself, and then finding it again with someone who supports her in ways most people will never see on screen. Before we dive into the Go Off Sis episode, the behind-the-scenes stories, and what this says about Nicolandria, Ace, Taylor, Cierra, Love Island USA, and the way we look at dating show couples as a whole, do me one tiny favor. Tap subscribe like it's a last-minute Love Island recoupling, and you're trying not to get dumped from the villa. It's free, it helps a ton, and you can always recouple with another channel later. All right, let's talk about Nicolandria and what Olandria just revealed.
When you think about Love Island USA Season 7, your brain probably goes straight to chaos. You think about Ace and Taylor, the messy arguments, and the way their situation dominated the timeline for weeks. You think about Cierra's exit and how that completely shifted the dynamics in the villa. You think about the Love Island Huda debates, the recouplings, and all the "this dating show is rigged" comments under every clip. And in the middle of all that noise, you have Nick and Olandria. At first, people had them paired in every possible direction. Some viewers wanted Nick with Cierra. Others wanted Olandria to stick with Taylor. Some people said Nicolandria was forced, that it would never work in the real world. Others said they saw the spark from day one and that Nick and Olandria were endgame, no matter what.
Fan edits were flying. Threads were fighting. People were arguing over who really deserved that finalist spot, who was using who, and whether Nicolandria was a genuine connection or just a convenient storyline for a dramatic Love Island season. But here's what's funny. While we were all busy replaying villa clips and decoding every tiny interaction, the real plot twist was happening quietly off-screen. Because when you actually sit down and listen to Olandria talk about her life before Nick, how he treats her now, and how much work he puts in to support her, you realize the Love Island episode count wasn't even the most interesting part of this story. And that starts with who she was before all of this. On the podcast, Olandria doesn't sound like someone who just stumbled into a cute reality TV romance and called it a day. She sounds like someone who has lived a lot of life before the cameras ever started rolling. She talks about how she'd really only been in one serious relationship before. Then she was single for years. Not just casually single, but single long enough that she started to harden up a little bit. Over time, when you don't feel safe with people, you stop giving out the softest parts of yourself. She admits she wasn't as soft as she wanted to be. She had walls. She had this tougher exterior. And honestly, that probably turned off a lot of the guys she talked to because she was thinking, you don't make me feel safe, so you don't get the soft, lovey side of me. And that's a really important point.
We love to talk about how someone isn't romantic or isn't affectionate, but we rarely ask the more important question, do they feel safe enough to be? If you don't feel emotionally safe, you're not going to be all giggly and cuddly just because someone thinks you're supposed to. So imagine being single for years, carrying that guarded energy, and feeling like maybe that softer version of you is gone, or at least temporarily retired. Now imagine someone walking into your life and completely flipping that script.
Enter Nick. When Olandria talks about him, the first thing she emphasizes is that this man does not do the whole "I don't care" act. She basically says he doesn't have a nonchalant bone in his body. If she's upset, he doesn't ignore it. If something feels off, he doesn't disappear and hope it magically fixes itself. His attitude is, can we talk about it? Tell me how you're feeling. Let's deal with this. He actually wants to communicate. And that alone is a huge shift if you're used to people who shut down, deflect, or pretend not to notice when something is wrong. For Olandria, it almost sounds like she had never really experienced someone being that intentional with her feelings before. She's used to holding it in, staying strong, and not being too soft because the space wasn't safe enough for that. But with Nick, she says she feels safe, she feels seen, she feels supported. And then she says something that's so simple but so telling. Even her view on physical touch changed. Before, physical touch was at the bottom of her list. People being too touchy used to completely turn her off. If someone was always in her space without making her feel emotionally safe, it felt gross, not romantic. But with Nick, because he makes her feel secure, physical touch starts climbing the ladder. Suddenly, she doesn't mind being physically affectionate. She doesn't mind being all lovey with him. In fact, she likes it because it's coming from someone who makes her feel genuinely protected and appreciated. That's what happens when you feel safe. Your softness comes back. It's not about changing who you are for somebody. It's about finally being in a situation where your nervous system can chill and you can actually enjoy being soft, playful, and affectionate again. And honestly, if the story stopped there, that would already be a pretty beautiful Nicolandria update. But of course, the story doesn't stop there. Because while she's rediscovering this softer side of herself, the internet is doing what the internet always does.
While Olandria is talking about feeling safe, supported, and deeply cared for, there's a whole other group of people online focused on something completely different, their own preferences. She basically says that some people are mad at her because she chose love over what they think her partner should look like. There are people acting like she betrayed an aesthetic, a type, or a fantasy version of who they imagined she'd end up with. And she's sitting there like, I'm with someone who values me, treats me well, and supports me. Why are you pressed? She talks about how Nick literally worships the ground she walks on, how he hears her, listens to her, and shows up for her. She says if he were treating her badly, she wouldn't be there. She wouldn't be with him. But instead of focusing on how she's being treated, a chunk of social media is fixated on me and mine, on her relationship, out of all the couples that have come off this show. There are so many people connected to Love Island Season 7, so many storylines, so many contestants, and yet some people choose to zoom in on Nicolandria, dissecting every move, every outfit, every post, and turning this relationship into a debate club topic instead of what it actually is. Two people trying to build something real. And honestly, her message between the lines is pretty clear. You don't have to understand someone else's relationship. You don't have to like who they chose. But if they're being loved well, supported fully, and treated with respect, maybe it's time to touch some grass and log out. Because the people with the strongest opinions about your relationship are very rarely the people who are actually in it.
And speaking of people who are actually here for the relationship, if you've made it this far breaking down Nicolandria with me, you might as well hit subscribe. At this point, you're basically part of the fandom anyway. Now, if you thought all of that was sweet, the next part will melt your heart completely, because that's where Nick's actions go from "aw" to "oh, this is serious."
One of the most powerful parts of what Olandria shares is a story that has nothing to do with the villa, a challenge, or some Love Island plot twist. It has to do with her career. She talks about a big fashion event in New York, one of those moments you dream about if you're trying to build a name in fashion and modeling. At first, she doesn't even know if she can invite Nick. She doesn't know how many tickets she has, how the guest list works, all the usual logistics. Nick at that time has no plans to go to this event. His schedule is packed, he's working, he has his own commitments, but then he hears she's walking. And his reaction isn't, "Oh, send me a video." It's not, "I'll watch on Instagram." It's literally, "I'm flying in for that. I want to support you. I want to be there."
He starts asking his team how he can show up for her in the best way. He wants to know how to support her more, how he can be that person for her. Not just as a boyfriend in a cute post, but as a real partner standing in her corner. He flies in for about 24 hours just to watch her walk. He's in the crowd, recording her, smiling like he just won the lottery. And when she talks about watching those videos back, you can feel how much it meant to her. It's not just that he came, it's that he wanted to come. He rearranged his life to come. And she says plainly, his schedule is packed. It's dumb busy. But if he has to cancel things or move things around to be there for her, he'll do it. No argument. No, well, I'll see if I can. Just, I want to be there. I want to support her. That's what real, everyday support looks like.
Not just flowers on special occasions, but consistent effort. Showing up, flying across the country to clap for you, asking, how can I be better for you? And actually wanting the answer. It's cute when a couple looks good together. It's beautiful when someone puts in real work behind the scenes to make sure you feel cherished. And if you've ever wondered whether Nicolandria is just a Love Island edit or a real connection, that story alone tells you a lot. But this isn't just about one relationship. This is where it starts to turn into a lesson for anyone listening.
One thing that really stands out about Olandria in that podcast is how focused she is on her bigger picture. She talks about school, work, stepping into tough environments, and figuring out who she is outside of a TV show. She talks about wanting more than just temporary clout. She wants longevity, legacy, something that still matters when the villa lights are long gone and the recoupling speeches are ancient history. You can hear it. She's not just chasing attention. She's building. And Nick doesn't sound like someone who's threatened by that. He sounds like someone who wants to fuel it. She mentions how he's always speaking life over her when she gets opportunities. He tells her how proud he is. He hyped her up when things were starting and continues to hype her up now. He brings her into some of his spaces to help grow her image. He pushes her toward the rooms and stages she deserves to be in. That's a different level of partnership.
They're not just posting cute photos together. They're acting like actual teammates. They want to see each other win. They want each other to grow as individuals and as a unit. And if you followed Love Island couples before, you know that sometimes everything becomes about the brand of the couple and the individual dreams get lost. Here, it feels like the opposite. The couple is strong because the individuals are encouraged to shine. Nick isn't trying to dim Olandria's light. He's literally asking, how can I help you shine more? That's huge. And that ties directly into the biggest takeaway from this whole Nicolandria journey.
Here's where this stops being just a cute recap and starts being a mirror for everyone watching. How many of us get stuck on a specific type? A certain look, a certain aesthetic, a certain storyline we imagined for ourselves. We build this perfect picture in our heads of who we think we'll end up with. And sometimes that mental image becomes more important to us than the way someone actually treats us. Olandria's story is a reminder to flip that. She stayed open. She didn't cling to some rigid idea of what her future partner had to look like on the outside. She prioritized how she was treated, how safe she felt, how supported she felt, how seen she felt. And when she found that, she chose it. Even when people online didn't like it. Even when strangers were loud, critical, and obsessed with analyzing her relationship.
She basically said, I'm with someone who values me, supports me, and shows up for me. I'm not giving that up because the comment section doesn't like the packaging. And that's the part that hits the hardest. Because so many people watching this have probably stayed in situations where they were tolerated, not celebrated. Where their softness was used against them instead of being protected. Where they were trying to win over people who were half in, half out, instead of being with someone who was all the way in. The Nicolandria story is cute, yes, but underneath the edits and interviews, the message is this. Go where you are appreciated. Go where you are loved out loud, not in secret. Go where your dreams are encouraged, not mocked. Go where someone sees your softness as something to protect, not something to manipulate.
If you're watching this and you've been shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable, or pretending you don't want more because you're afraid it doesn't exist, let this be your sign. It does exist. You just have to be willing to let go of the people who don't give it and the image you thought it had to come in. Because the right person won't just say they care. They'll rearrange their schedule. They'll get on a plane for 24 hours. They'll stand in the crowd, phone in hand, grinning while you walk toward your goals. And that's bigger than any dating show storyline.
So when we look back now at Love Island USA Season 7, Ace, Nick, Olandria, Taylor, Cierra, the Love Island Huda mess, the recouplings, the twists, the finale, it's easy to think the story ended when the credits rolled. But listening to Olandria talk about her life, you realize the real story starts after the villa. It's in the way Nick handles conflict with her. It's in the way she feels soft and safe again after years of feeling hardened. It's in the way physical touch went from no thanks to I actually like this now. Not because she changed who she is, but because she finally feels secure. It's in the New York fashion story where he flies in just to clap for her and ask his team how to support her better. It's in the mindset shift from does this look perfect for the timeline to does this feel right in my actual life?
Nicolandria isn't just a ship name. It's a case study in what happens when you choose to be with someone who actually shows up. So the next time you see a clip of Nick and Olandria laughing on a TikTok, walking a red carpet, or just hanging out, remember, behind that is a lot of quiet effort, a lot of genuine care, and a lot of choices that had nothing to do with what strangers on the internet wanted for them. And maybe the real challenge for all of us isn't to debate whether a couple from a dating show is real enough, but to ask ourselves, am I in spaces where I'm appreciated? Am I with people who cheer when I win? Am I allowing myself to be loved the way I actually deserve? If the answer is no, then maybe this whole Nicolandria saga is your reminder that you're allowed to want more, and you're allowed to go find it.